I got arrested. I was selling weed and I was speeding, got pulled over, and it was a humbling moment to have an officer, his dog, go through your car as you're sitting in the back of a squad car.
The world is obsessed with fast track success. It's easy to think that people become successful overnight. But let's face it, more often than not, what we see on social media is total BS. I'm here to look past the perception of perfect success and focus on life's detours, perceived mistakes, and even wrong choices, and understand the real road traveled up the career ladder. After all, we're all effing up. Daniel Griffin has over 15 plus years in the talent acquisition space. Dan has spent the last 5 years in leadership roles supporting multi-billion-dollar global businesses at Microsoft. While many people look at his personal and professional career as a quick and rather linear trajectory, there are many instances where Dan feels he has really effed it up. Dan, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we get started in questions, tell us what you're up to today in terms of your career.
I'm at an interesting kind of point in my career, and I'm sure we'll get into it at some point. But yeah, so currently I am working for a stealth AI startup, doing some part-time consulting work for them, recruiting, helping them set up their processes and procedures and operations as they look to scale and grow. Outside of that is really just some introspective for me and trying to find my next thing, what I want to do next. Working with this other company right now has been eye-opening and a new experience that I'm really enjoying.
Okay, we'll dive into that a little bit later.
Sure.
Reflecting on your youth, is there something that comes to mind for you, maybe a specific story or theme that ties into your career journey?
I always struggled with my own identity, feeling comfortable in my skin. And that is, yeah, that's something that I've struggled with kind of forever, from a weight perspective or an image perspective, or trying to fit into a certain mold. Grew up in a pretty affluent community, but never really felt that for myself or for the people around me. Moving out of youth, though, and into kind of high school is where I had some like tougher journeys and tougher experiences, and trying to find myself and trying to find out, like, who am I or who do I want to be. High school was a really fun time for me, but it came at the expense of expectations of grades, or what do you want to do, or who do you want to be. And yeah, I wasn't focused on either of those. High school was a party time for me, experimenting with things, making a
You're
lot of
being vague.
mistakes.
Were you experimenting with lighting things on fire? Were you experimenting with substances? All of the above?
Yeah, a little all of the above.
Mm.
Definitely high school is where I started what ended up being a short-lived career in drinking. And that took all of my focus, whether it was drinking or smoking weed or whatever that may be. That snowballed. I didn't see it at the time, but that snowballed into future issues primarily after college. But in high school itself, yeah, I got arrested. I was selling weed and I was speeding, got pulled over, and it was a humbling moment to have an officer, his dog, go through your car as you're sitting in the back of a squad car, like 17 years old, and you're like, what am I doing? And then on top of that, them calling your parents, and then you having them, my parents had to come pick me up, and it was a pretty long car ride home, talking to them about what are you doing with your life? Like, as parents, where did we go wrong? Like, you are the person that every parent fears because you are selling these to other kids. And yeah, felt sorry for myself type moment.
Before you got caught, did you struggle with it morally, ethically?
No, not at all.
You're a kid, you're invincible.
You're invincible and you've got friends that are doing it. And I think that goes back into the youth of fitting in. You were the person that people called. You were the
Yeah.
person that
You were
people
needed.
be around.
Who doesn't want to feel needed?
And I think with that brought this cloak of invincibility to where,
Mm,
hey, I'm good. Nothing could go wrong. Things can go very wrong. I was forced to go to an outpatient facility after that. That was my reprimand. And that started the journey for me of truly learning what humility was, what being like powerless over something is all about. It was lost friends because of it, and for two reasons. One, their parents didn't want me to be around them.
sure.
And two, I also came to the realization, hey, if I'm getting in trouble from smoking weed a lot, I should probably not do that. And when that was your circle of friends and your circle of influence, you lose that. And
Yeah.
so then that spiraled into what can I grab onto next, right?
Mm,
Which I stopped smoking, but continued to drink. And
mm,
so like you find your new circle of influence, and
yeah.
then a couple years after that got into some different substance abuse. It was this like continuous grasp for belonging and fitting in, which again, like I think ties back to that youth of
Yeah.
not being comfortable in my own skin. And so finding ways to be wanted and finding ways
Mm.
to feel needed and wanting to be surrounded by people who wanted to be around me.
As you're approaching high school graduation, how are you
Yeah.
thinking about your future and what came next?
Yeah, I wasn't.
That's 95% of people I interview. It's very rare that people
Yeah.
have a solid answer to that.
It's a very vivid memory for me because academically I was failing, right? In high school. Like
Mm,
I was near the bottom of my class. And that wasn't because of a competency issue. It was, I just simply didn't try. I didn't care. And I didn't really understand, like, why would I? And so as high school graduation came and I had no plan, my dad had a very honest conversation with me. It's fine that you didn't go to college, but it's also time for you to leave the nest if you don't want to push yourself. And so that was this come to moment where I was like, I don't think that I could at 18 years old. I don't know that I could just leave home without a plan. I didn't really have a job per se. Signed myself up and got into community college because the barrier to entry was nothing. I didn't have to write an essay. My grades didn't play into that. That's where some growth for me started to begin. I was pushed by a friend who was like, why don't I got into Western Washington University? Why don't you come with me? And you're about a year and a half, 2 years into school. You start to see your friends who are off at like major universities, whether it's
mm.
UW, a bunch of my friends went to WSU, and they're having a ton of fun. I don't think any of them had their life figured out. So I was like, okay, why not? But I didn't get into Western. And so I was like, I'll go up there and I'll transfer into the community college up there. I figure if I'm at their local community college, it's pretty much a shoe-in. And so I think it's the summer before we're intended to move. And he calls me and he says, hey, I hate to do this to you, but I got into the School of Business at UW and I'd be foolish if I didn't take that opportunity. It's a much better school. It was closer to home for me. And so that was the like a big push in my life to do I want to get out of this umbrella? Out of my parents' umbrella, like really push myself. I didn't know too many people up in Bellingham. And I made the decision like, yes, I do. And it was still like I'd have to go to community college. And I knew while I was up there, like my end goal is to get into the university. Still no clue as to what I was going to do in said university or where that was going to go. But I knew
Mm.
that that was the order of operations that I was has set forth. And I got rejected. I got rejected 3 times
Oh,
into Western.
wow.
The third time I got rejected, I called my dad and I was like, I don't know what to do. I think it's time for me to come home. Like, it's very clear that they don't want me. there was some self-reflection. It was because of my grades were still not better. Like I didn't learn that out of high school.
Mm.
And he gave me some sound advice. He was like, find out who the dean of students is and see if she'll meet with you. This is a time where if you want this, you've got to fight for it. I emailed the dean, and to my surprise, she said, sure, we'll have an hour meeting. And I had no idea what I was going to do. It's
What
like,
you're gonna
hey,
say?
let me into your college.
Leaving your office till you let me in.
Yeah, yeah. And so I met with her, and the meeting lasted way more than an hour. We talked about life. I unveiled to her just my journey in high school and where I had effed it up and this and that.
Wow, you laid it on the table.
Yeah, and when the meeting was over, she said, I'm going to tell you something. I accepted your meeting request for the purpose of I didn't want to wait you to waste your time and continue to apply for something that wasn't going to happen. And my heart kind of sank, and she goes, but I'm also going to give you some career advice. I think you should find your way into sales once you graduate Western. Your authenticity, your story, what you gave to me is what I want at this university. And so there were some stipulations. You've got to pull your grades up in the last 2 quarters of community college. If you do that, you're accepted. And that was a
Damn,
turning
that's outstanding.
point for me. It was someone who, beyond my parents, for the first time in my life, was like, I see you,
Yeah, you felt seen, I'm
and I
sure.
believe in you. I
Wow.
think that you will be successful.
I
And
love
it was incredible. Like I left that meeting and called my dad. I'm sure I was like sobbing and just like, I can't believe this happened. He was like, okay, don't screw it up. Get your grades up, which I did. And I got into school, and college was not easy for me by any means, but gritted my way through. C's get degrees. And yeah, like that was a relatively common thing.
But you're a hustler.
Got myself through that. Still no clue really what I wanted to do, but I was approaching this graduation date and I shouldn't have even been there. So,
Gosh, that's such a great story. Talk to me about finding your job outside of college. It looks like it was 2008, which
yeah,
wasn't the best year.
business degree, economics minor, still really no direction in what I want to do. I go to one of the career fairs. I'm walking around. God, there's all these companies, engineering. I'm not an engineer. Teachers. I'm
Mm.
not a teacher. I was approached by these recruiting companies, and they have a very smart tactic. They send incredibly presentable people, like very attractive, both men and women, and their pitch is pretty firm. They don't expect you to have any experience in recruiting. I think when I first approached and someone was like, do you know what recruiting is? The only recruiting I had ever heard of in my life was military recruiting.
Mm.
But they said we look for people who are hungry to succeed, who've got a good attitude, and who want to make a ton of money. And so the pitch was like, hey, you've got the opportunity to make a ton of money, and we really like to party. Sounds right up my alley. I had gotten to the place where I am motivated for something at that point in my life. I needed money, and I still loved to party. Fast forward, come out of college with an offer to join a recruiting agency, and no idea what recruiting was, but started basically a month after I graduated. 2008 is not a great time for the US economy. And I remember vividly, once you get through the learning phase of this is what recruiting is, we were in the winter of 2008 and we had zero
Mm.
positions to hire for on our board. And I'm looking at my boss, what? What do we do? And he was like, this is where you grind. We all need to pick up the phone, call every single candidate that you can and figure out if they're interviewing. And if so, try to get all the details out of it. Who's the company? Who did you meet with? What are they hiring for? And that's how we get scrappy and we try to find work to go and fill. Because at an agency, at least the one I was at, you're paid, I think I was paid like $32,000 a year for my base salary, which coming out of college, I was super excited. My sister humbled me and she's, yeah, that equates to about 15 bucks an hour. But
So that was
But
a different time than the current
yes,
state
yeah,
where,
but your money came through commission, which was filling jobs, getting people on site, and so on and so
yeah.
forth. Insight Global, they held true to their promise. You can make a ton of money, and we like to party, and that's where I came at another crossroads in my life. In your early 20s, and you've got the money to party, and you like to party, you can get yourself into some trouble. I think it was winter of 2009. I got a DUI. And at the time, it's like, all right, I have one DUI. That sucks. There was another moment where parents had to come. They saw me at my lowest of lows. They had to come and get my car as I left in a police car and had some like really honest conversations with people, including my parents and my girlfriend at the time. People didn't understand or didn't realize that was a pretty common occurrence for me. And it also didn't stop me.
This is just the first time you've gotten caught.
Correct. But it didn't stop me. 6 months later, I got pulled over again, very drunk, still going through the court proceedings for through my first one, and the second DUI comes. And that was the moment for me that I realized I had a problem and I had really effed up. And there was no getting out of this. And at first, it wasn't my choice. It was the state of Washington's and the city of Kirkland's that said, you need to quit drinking. I had to go through outpatient again, required a number of AA meetings per week, had to get the blow and go deal in your car. And then of August of 2010, I decided I'm done drinking. And at the age of 25, I can fortunately say has still lasted me through today. It had definitely was the next big shaping of my career and of my personal life.
Did your relationships suffer because you decided to quit?
Yeah, yeah. It was like, really like you, but we all drink, and you're also a lot more fun when you drink. Because I think, like, innately, I started to understand myself. Like, I am generally introverted. I'm fine having conversations one on one with people. I'm fine, like, opening up about that. But put me in a big crowd, a busy city, a bunch of loud people, which is what this environment was. And so, yeah, it was a super tough time. And I was getting engaged and planning a wedding. How am I going to go through my wedding day without cheersing with my wife who she drinks? The process of quitting, and people will say what they say about AA. I don't attend anymore, but there are a lot of life lessons in humility and understanding that if you take things one day at a time or 1 hour or 1 minute at a time, life is manageable. You
Mm.
can get through it. And I think that more so than a lot of other events in my life, like shaped who I have become.
I'm sober as well, and overall, so thrilled with the continued decision, but I've definitely missed out on things because suddenly I'm not cool enough for those drinking. And they think she wouldn't want to join because she doesn't drink, and
Yeah.
that's really tough. But at the end of the day, I'm a long gamer, and if I drink, my problems are still there
Right.
and worse. And I want people who are accepting and inclusive of the long game decision that I'm making, the benefits myself, of course, but those around me and my children. I don't
Yeah.
trust myself with my children, and it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, it's humbling and you missed out on some of the quote end quote fun, but look at the rich life that you're able to lead. I can get through this and I can control this, and I don't have to have something aid me, which will end up not aiding me in the end.
Yeah. I think you also understand like who are your real friends.
Mm,
It was understand this is my true identity. Up until that point, I could mask it. I could mask it with
sure.
drinking or smoking or other substance type abuse to say, this is the way I fit in. But you strip all of that away and you've got this kind of come to moment where you're like,
Mm,
without that, this is who I am. As raw as it was, is I have to define me and I have to truly be authentic to myself and what's best for me. And then eventually, as my wife and I grew a family, like what's best for her and my kids. And it's a tough lesson to learn in your mid 20s, but I'm super thankful for it
Mm.
because it did open up this authenticity in myself that I've never had. I've never really had to face, maybe in like brief moments, but now coming up on close to 14 years, this is a large majority of my life, and it's pretty empowering.
I'd argue that it gives you security in a life where you didn't have security for so long, where you were trying to find yourself and you're like, I own this. This is me. I made this
Right?
decision. I know who I am because of it.
Security and also fear. It's nothing but me. You surround yourself with the support systems, but I've got really nothing to fall back on because I've made the decision. Like, I'm not going to go back to drinking. It caused too much trouble for myself and my family and friends.
Right.
How do you deal with that pressure or that opportunity?
If I'm following the timeline correctly, this all happened midway during your journey, your almost 6.5 year
Yeah.
journey at Insight Global. When you made the change, did it affect your work product for the positive, for the negative, indifferent?
It didn't change my productivity. It changed the social aspect on
Mm,
what I did at work, but it didn't change my actual work beyond giving me some clarity and focus on what I want to do.
mm.
And so at Insight Global, what that kind of led to is I didn't want to go into sales. Despite this moment with my college advisor, I didn't want to go into sales.
If you can do it,
But there was also a high level of schmooze and booze in sales.
astute.
And so I was good at recruiting. I was very good at it. And the company saw that. I went and piloted a role that they coined professional recruiter, and then went and piloted a lead recruiter role, which is different. Like I was not truly managing anyone, but was the example of this is what a recruiter should look like. This is what you should aspire to do. There are two career paths. There's your traditional sales one where you go into account manager, and then there's sales managers and regionals and so on and so forth. Or on the recruiting side, you can be a professional recruiter and then a lead recruiter, but I wasn't feeling challenged. I wasn't feeling challenged. In about year 5 there, I let that be known. Okay, I need more challenges. So they asked if I wanted to pilot one more role, which was the coined business development manager, was essentially trying to figure out how do we go and provide staffing solutions for full-time hiring for small to mid-sized companies versus contingent, which was like contract hiring,
Mm.
and did that role for about a year and just didn't get much enjoyment out of it. And so went to my boss who had my back, but went to my CEO and said, I long for something else. Career development. Mind you, again, I'm still in my mid 20s. And his response was, you've gone as far as we can see recruiting going at this time. We appreciate you. You're an amazing team member. We love you for the company, but we are a sales company. We do recruiting as an output of what we sell, but we are a sales company. And so if you don't want to go in that route, we respect that, but just make yourself comfortable. You're making more money than most 20-year-olds will ever make in their life, and just enjoy the ride and have fun. And I quit the next day on my 6-year anniversary. And again, it was at a point in time where it was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't know what next week looks like, but I knew that wasn't right for me.
So you quit without a job lined up.
I did.
And you gave 2 weeks notice or what?
I did, but because of the way that they're set up, it's if you quit, you're out. You were gone.
Mm.
I said my goodbyes that morning of my anniversary, and that was it. That was it. It
Wow.
was what's next? What am I going to do next?
And
Which was
then
scary, but a pivotal point in my career of where I was taking ownership of it. I was taking ownership of, I knew that this wasn't right to me. My dad told me something a couple years before that. He's, listen, at the end of the day, you work for a corporation, and that means two things. You don't owe them anything, and they don't owe you anything.
Mm.
And that has stuck with me to this day where, yeah, you're a cog in the wheel. And he said, as good as you are and as good as they think you are, if you leave, they'll replace you. It's just,
Yeah.
it's always that churn. If it's not right for you, if you're having this feeling of fulfillment or no challenge and it's not pushing you, he was like, leave. You got to make that decision. I think his advice was also like, find a job before you leave. Like I had started looking, I knew that I wanted to try this corporate recruiting thing. But at that point in time, companies wanted to hire people who had corporate recruiting experience. My feedback to them was, yeah, you have to hire me in order for me to get that experience. Someone does. Someone has to take a chance on me. And yeah, without a job lined up, I left.
According to LinkedIn, you have a month gap and then you joined Amazon, but it looks like in a contractor capacity. Talk to me about that time.
I had gotten connected with a manager at Amazon who was like, yeah, I'd bring you on a contract. And a little shot to your pride in doing that because you go from making a bunch of money, which admittedly I myself had left, into this contract opportunity. But I figured if I need to grow in my career, then more or less like starting over, at least that's the feeling I had at the moment. Starting over would be the way to do it. I didn't stay at Amazon very long. I was there for 5 months. And reason being is it was not the right culture fit for me. The recruiting organization, we were all getting paid on commission, like to the point where I went to my boss and I was like, is everyone else paid on commission besides me? Like I have an hourly rate. That's what I'm getting paid for. I don't get paid for like positions I fill. It's super competitive. So you did your hiring for your numbers that played a role into promotion cycles and things of that nature. Then like hiring for the company, doing the right thing for the company. I got a call from another agency that said, hey, we've got an opportunity at Google. It's a contract role. Would you be interested? I said, yeah, absolutely.
I've heard less about people loving it at Amazon than not.
Yeah, I mean, I
They're
just try to keep.
ruthless. They don't love their people. Like they'll pay their people like really
Yeah,
well, but
yeah.
man, they put you to work.
Yeah, Amazon, it's a different place for a different breed. There is a grind there and high expectations. And I will say, from what I've heard, it depends on what team you're in. And that can be true of any big corporation. But from my experience and the HR and recruiting world, it was a dog eat dog world. And that is a world that so I
Yeah.
knew it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Talk to me about Google and what were the learning curves you experienced?
The biggest thing I learned at Google is the art of negotiation.
Mm.
My job there was less on the find of the candidate and more of the negotiation with the candidate and also working with the business to understand what are their needs and how does a candidate fit into those needs beyond just a resume or a technical expertise. What are the areas, the intangibles that they look for and they're fitting for? And then I was blessed with some mentors there who were masters at salary negotiation and meeting people where they're at and moving forward, either exceeding or not quite meeting their expectations, but helping them understand the whys and what went into the negotiations, what went into their total compensation package. That was the real kind of deep dive into a corporate total compensation package training, which certainly helped me as I transitioned into Microsoft.
Why did you leave Google?
I spent close to a year and a half there. And my boss and I were talking about opportunity for conversion and what that looked like,
Mm.
contract to full time. And there's a lot to love about Google. There's free food, games everywhere. It's a great place to work. But Microsoft had called and they had a full-time opportunity. And growing up around Redmond, which is where Microsoft's based, everyone knows of Microsoft. But to me, that's where all of your friends' parents had worked and retired. Sure. What was exciting about Microsoft? Like They had Office, which everyone used, Word, Excel, so on and so forth. They were bad in mobile. And then they had this thing, Xbox, which at that time was taking off. It wasn't the rage that it is today, but ended up getting an offer with Microsoft. And totally transparently, it was not a career move for me. It was an opportunity to get the big three in Seattle, being Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, onto my resume. And I figured, hey, I'll spend a year, 2 years here, and then I could go anywhere. I'd be marketable wherever, having those big three. And yeah, would have never imagined to spend nearly 8 years there. But Microsoft, from a leadership standpoint, is where things like really started to take off.
Why did you depart Microsoft?
That was not a choice of mine. I was laid off. Talk about another like humbling moment. I had this kind of rocket ship career trajectory, which certainly had its learnings within there. People thought very highly of me, and then you get a meeting put on your calendar at 9:30 a.m. in the morning, and you hop on this call with a couple hundred other people, and your boss is sitting there in tears, and not like fake tears, like meaningful tears, saying, "I'm sorry, but today's your last day. And we appreciate everything you've done, but Microsoft has made decisions, and unfortunately, you are part of those." So, yeah, my leaving Microsoft was certainly not a choice of mine, and not
Yeah.
something that I loved by any means. But yeah, it sucked.
See it coming?
From a sense, you can always say, "Oh, I could see it," or it could be me. Like, it wasn't our first round of layoffs. We did a round of layoffs in January, and you get the sense that you're never safe. And to the people on my team, so at the time I was a director, so I was managing a sizable team. I had managers reporting to me. To my team, it was like, hey, like at any day it could be us. It could be us. But you say that with this kind of sugarcoat around it, where it's, we're good.
Yeah.
I'm a high performer. I know my boss thinks highly of me. I know the people I'm surrounded thinks highly of me. But at the end of the day, like, the finance team doesn't care about that. As a director, you're an overhead cost. And I don't know at the end of the day, like, what determinations they made. But yeah, I can't say that I saw it coming at all. When the day actually comes, your world comes crashing down.
What emotions were stirred up?
Defeat, of failure. You have this introspective of, what did I do wrong?
Mm.
Where could I have been better? It's a roller coaster of emotions where you're like, okay, it's okay. I will find a job. I've worked at successful places. I've had a successful career, but there's this underlying tone of, I'm not good enough. Because if I were good enough, I wouldn't have been laid off.
Sure.
And it's hard not having the answer to that. It's hard not having, hey, this is why you were chosen. A part of you would love to know that, but from a corporation as large as Microsoft is, like, maybe there's not a reason, or maybe there is, but they're not going to tell you for fear of litigation or whatever that may be. You go through this roller coaster of emotions from, I'm good, like, I'll survive this, to like, what the fuck? Like, what actually just happened? And what does this mean for me and my wife, who's works at a private school, and so she's on a teacher's salary, and my 9 and my 7-year-old. What does this actually mean for us? Then you get rejected by 3 more jobs that you've applied to. Then you get an interview, so you get the high, and then they're like, you're great, but you don't have this experience, or you're great, but we found someone else who's also great. And the last year in dealing with consistent and constant rejection, you have a hard time finding the silver lining in any of that, and
Yeah.
finding any value of your own self-worth.
And for someone who has not experienced a layoff, they're probably thinking, why are you taking it so personally? It wasn't about you, it was about the company needing to make cuts. And then you start to hear a story like yours, and it's like, how could you not take it personally? It affects every part of your life, and it has to be a blow to your confidence, whether or not it was about you, it becomes about you.
Yeah, absolutely. In one way or another, it is about you. It's
Mm,
about if you're the sole provider, a lot of people, they're single with kids, they're the sole provider of their family. Or
yeah,
like me, like my wife has a job, it helps us afford the lifestyle that we have and the house that we're in. But yeah, it is about you. Whether the decision was about you or not,
right.
it becomes about you.
Almost,
And
yeah.
at that point, it doesn't matter at all. And the overwhelming support you get from your past teammates or people on LinkedIn, they're like, I can't believe this is happening to you. Like, you were so successful. It's well, it can happen to anyone. And
It's
at the
happened
end
to
of the
a
day, like,
lot of people.
and at the end of the day, it's, hey, thanks for that vote of confidence. That's, I can't believe you'll bounce back. Like, when?
I talked to someone recently on a podcast about grief, and it's very similar. People cannot help themselves in terms of trying to sugarcoat it for you, trying to create a solution for you. They can't just sit in the anarchy that perhaps you're living in and have to fill quiet space, which for someone who's been through something like what you're going through, that's not necessarily helpful. So easy for you to say, I'm going to bounce back, but I have not bounced back. And I have to be the solid rock and act like everything's fine when
Right.
behind closed doors, it's maybe not fine. And I'm having to deal with it with my spouse, with my children, who knows what all you're trying to keep afloat. And the fact that you're just telling me that everything's going to be fine, just for me not being you, but imagine I'd be like, all of you, just stop. This is not helpful. In some
Yeah.
point, you just want someone to be like, damn, that sucks. And
Right.
just leave it. Just
Yeah.
let you be.
Yeah. I had this experience. I was applying for jobs back at Microsoft and outside of Microsoft where colleagues were like, you're better than that. That's several roles below or levels below of where you're at. I can't believe it. And you're like, you don't know what it's like to not have money coming in. You don't know what it's like to have to sign your kids up for Medicaid
Mm,
and you're starting to call doctors and they're like, we don't take that. And so then you're going to like I'm just trying to find like basic healthcare for my children and for myself. And it's great that the country's providing that. We don't take it. It's
mm,
demoralizing. I told this one person, what, that job is so beneath you. And I was like, not making money is beneath me. It's
yeah.
not from a pride standpoint. It's from I've got a house and a mortgage and kids. I need work. I never realized how important having benefits were. Like back to this theme of being humbled throughout my entire life. It's like I can build myself up again. I'm confident in myself and my abilities. You give me an entry level job, cool. I will prove that's not the right space for me. And hopefully, if there's budget through a company, I will grow again. But no one has the right to tell me you're too good for this job. Let me make that decision. I
Yeah,
applied.
that's right.
Therefore, I am interested. Therefore, I need this. Don't be afraid to hire someone who's better for the job. We'll get the job done. We'll make you look really good.
This harkens
I'm
back.
not after your job sort of thing, right?
This harkens back to your conversation with the university president, where it's just get me in the room. Get me in the
Yeah.
room. And by the time we're done, that hour will be an hour and a half, and you'll give me the opportunity and let me decide if I want the opportunity or not.
Yeah, I feel for anyone who
Mm,
has gone through this, especially in this market, especially in like HR over the last year, thousands
yeah,
and thousands and thousands. I've got this moral conflict of feeling sorry for myself because I
sure.
know that there are people that are worse off.
But it's not a competition.
Their struggles are my struggles, potentially on different levels or by different means, but like we both feel like shit. We both want to get back to work
That's
and we
right.
need someone to take that chance.
What have you messaged to your kids?
Yeah, the kids has been tough. It was like, just reflecting on that. I was in a car with my son and someone from one of his teams, and we were going to drop this kid off at his team whose parents are very well off. They got a huge house. And the kid on the team goes, "So what do you do for work?" And my son's, he goes, "My dad got fired." And I was like, hold up here. Hold up, hold up. I was not
There's a
fired.
difference.
That
Like the
there's a
technicality
difference.
really matters.
Yeah, the message to my kids is I'm not like totally vulnerable with them. There's some sugarcoating that needs to happen because they're so
Well,
young that
that's
I
your
don't think
job
they
as a
can fully
parent. You have to
process. But
discern what they're capable of.
yeah, the message has been like dad lost his job and he's working hard to find another job so that we can continue the life that we live.
Mhm.
The beauty in anything, if you can find any of it, is I have had the blessing to be able to take my kids to school in the morning, which up until last year I had never done. Pick them up from school, and so I get time with them, which they appreciate. But I know that they know what's happening, and I know that whether they say it or not, there will be this reflection of dad failed, or at least that's how I feel for
Mhm.
them. Dad failed. He's gone a year without having a job, and we've had to live a little differently because of that. And that's tough. That's tough as a father and as someone who
Yeah.
wants to and has always provided for them. Yeah, all your friends are getting these new bats or these new gloves or all these things. Like, we shouldn't be buying those things right now because may I need remind you, like, dad has not worked for a year, and that's tough.
When you reflect on your full career, where does the low point sit?
Here, for sure. It's this feeling of great success, especially with Microsoft. And I had some of the best managers who taught me of amazing lessons from people putting you on such a pedestal of your success and
Yeah.
your quick trajectory to the floor just dropping out from underneath of you and this feeling of hopelessness or like, when will this end? When will an opportunity come?
Mm.
And again, for me, it's whether it's at the same level or essentially an entry level, like just get me in the room sort of thing. But yeah, it would be now.
What is the key thing that made you feel like being on this podcast would be a good idea?
This notion that most leaders that I have met have a much more interesting story than what it shows on paper.
Mm.
And I think it's the vulnerability of people talking about the shit that sucked more than the things that went right that make people better.
Thanks
It was
for
good.
lending your story. Thanks for your vulnerability.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Effing Up. I'm your host, Deanne Reiner. If you enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe on the platform you use to listen to podcasts. Share Effing Up with others, post about it on social media, and or leave a rating and review. Until next time, count your perceived failures as part of your path to success. After all, we're all effing up.